Welcome to everyone that's tuned in this evening, whether you're tuning in from across the UK, from our different regions across the UK, or whether indeed you're tuning in from abroad um, across the different continents, because we have women from all over the world that tune in to our Connect Live series, and we really want you to feel welcomed. Please also share with others. Let them know that Connect Live has started. Tonight we'll be talking about women, financial economic empowerment, and it's part of a series of discussions that we've been having about women empowerment. And so we're delighted tonight to be here again to discuss this very important topic in the climate that we're in, with the economic downturn. Gas and electricity bills are on the uprise. The people have lost their jobs during the pandemic. And indeed, we know from the research evidence that particularly women have fared worse as a result of the pandemic. And they've been set back, I think the evidence says something like 90 years in terms of their standing in sort of the jobs that they were in, people who've had to tend to childcare and so forth. It's really had a huge impact. And we discussed a lot about that during March, the International Women's Month edition. I particularly want to thank my colleagues, our national leader, Minister Powell, my team of regional leaders who have really stood in the gap with the Connect series. Most of you will know that I had a bereavement back in October. So this is my first time back on Connect Live. I have missed it, but I needed that break. And women, sometimes we just have to take a bit of time out. And thank you all so much, Sister Maureen, Sister Denise, Sister Priska, Sister Barbara, all of you that have just held the fort and just kept things going. In fact, the whole team, not just the ones that you see that come live, but those that are working in the background as well. I really wholeheartedly want to tell you thank you. And so tonight, as I said, I just want you to feel relaxed. If you've got any comments, please put them in the comments box on YouTube or indeed Zoom. Follow us, follow Women's Ministries. We have a Twitter address, Joyce Fletcher 20 Twitter, and our Instagram page as well, National Women's Ministries COGOP UK. And we do indeed have a Facebook page as well, and we can share that detail a little bit later, and encourage all of your friends to join us. That said, I will now want to introduce my co-host for tonight, which is none other than Shez Christopher. Hi Shez, how are you?
Hi Joyce, I'm fine. How are you?
I'm great. I've had a busy week, and I'm glad you asked me that because I wanted to just share something. I'm bursting to let people know that I've become a grandmother for the first time. I've become a little grandson named Treyon Fletcher. So there you have it. I am bursting with joy over my first grandson. And so last week it was all of that is just a week old. And this morning, I do want to say that I was part of a book launch. This book, Compelling, is by Dr. Sharon Byfield. And this book is about the struggles, the fight for a faith school. Now, Dr. Sharon is a formidable woman, and anybody that's seeking empowerment, I would encourage you to go out and order this book on Amazon. It's $10.99, but it is a compelling read. The author is Dr. Sharon Byfield and Ralph Turner. I just had to give a plug for that because I was supporting the launch of this book just this morning. So a busy week.
Great, Joy. That book sounds compelling. So everybody who can hear our voice, why not get the book? I sent my son to a faith school, and it's a challenge, but it's worth it. So find the book online, as Joyce has promoted. But welcome to tonight's session on economic empowerment. We want to welcome all of our guests here in England, all of our guests abroad, no matter where you're watching from across the globe. A welcome to you, women, daughters, aunties, and everybody, your uncles, and please join us tonight and be empowered economically, financially. We're stewards of God's money here on earth, and we would like to encourage you and share. We've got a panel of people who have given up their time to share with you the best ways to become economically savvy in this time. And just in case you don't know me, I'm Shez Christopher. I'm the mother of one son, and I am the foster mother to many. I'm a lawyer. I am a self-made property development person. That's what I like to say. And what else about me? I'm the women's leader in Wembley and also the women's leader regionally for London North. So join with us tonight. I'm all up for financial empowerment. I think this is going to be a great topic. Enjoy. I hand back to Sister Joyce at this moment.
Oh, thank you, Shez. Thank you. I feel excited. I really do feel excited about tonight. Sometimes it's the area of finance is something that we sometimes don't talk enough about. So yeah, I'm really looking to hear from our amazing panelists that we're going to now introduce. So there is someone sat right next to you, Shez. Margaret. Lovely to have you. Now, for those who don't know, Margaret is Shez's mother, and they're both at the same device tonight. Yeah, give a shout out for Shez and Margaret next to each other tonight, and it is amazing to see you both. So Margaret, can you introduce yourself to us and just let us know a little bit about yourself and what you're going to be sharing with us tonight?
Hi, good evening all. I'm Margaret Christopher. I'm the eldest of several siblings, born in the Twin Islands of St. Kitts, Nevis. I'm the mother of 5 children, 6 grandchildren, and 3 great-grandchildren. I've been married to the same handsome prince for over 63 years. I gave my life to the Lord as a teenager and have been serving the Lord ever since. I have a great sense of humor. I believe wholeheartedly that a merry heart is better than any medicine. As soon as my youngest became 16, I re-entered the world of full-time education. And this was in a college. And I served as a manager in Brent colleges. There I gained a qualification in teaching, assessing, and as a business graduate. My teaching experience was in the colleges and the HM prisons. As an avid learner, I love literature. I read all sorts of books, leaflets, magazines, things of interest that pass through my hands. I love to sing. I am a keen advocate for equity of every respect, especially in the Black cultural region. I also major in women's empowerment and economics, fashion, and of course the Word of God. I have served in the Church of God of Prophecy for over 50 years. There I have held a full-time ministry since the early 80s, and I'm currently an assistant pastor in the same church. Lastly, I love to teach and debate on all things that are profitable to the mind, body, soul, and spirit. And tonight, I want to share a little bit about economy or thrift in the home. These include free cycling, recycling, handicraft, cooking, baking, teaching, and children financial responsibilities. Also, best time to shop and how to start earning a living from a very early age. At this time, I'd like to hand back over to Sister Joyce.
That's absolutely amazing. You know, just listening to your resume and all that you've done, and congratulations. Did you say married for 63 years? Did I hear that right?
Yes.
Wow. Many, many, many congratulations. Thank you very much. Sister Shez, I'll hand over to you to introduce our next guest.
And at this time, we are going to introduce none other than Rachel Arnold, who's the head of engagement for Christians Against Poverty. So listen with a keen ear as what she has to share and introduce herself. Over to you, Rachel.
Thank you, Shez. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. It's a real joy and a privilege to be joining you all this evening. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for inviting me. So as Shez has said, yes, I work at Christians Against Poverty, where I am head of church engagement and partnership. I've worked there for just over 3 years now. I live in Leeds with my husband Phil, who is an Anglican vicar, and I have 2 wonderful stepchildren who live with us. Christians Against Poverty. I'm here really tonight to talk later on about some of the work that they do. At CAP, we have a vision to see transformed lives, thriving churches, and an end to UK poverty. Yes, it is a huge vision, but it is a vision of the world that we want to see. And it's a vision that we believe with God's grace and with God's Spirit, each of us can play our part in bringing that vision to fruition. We always work with the local church across the UK, and we want to inspire and equip the church to release people to help people out of poverty and to see them become followers of Jesus. And I think a little bit later this evening I'll have a little chance to talk more about our work and about how churches and individuals can play their part in helping see that vision of lives transformed, churches thriving, and an end to UK poverty. So I'll hand back now and look forward to talking a bit more later.
Over to you, Sister Joyce.
Thank you. That was such an amazing vision. I really look forward to hearing more from Rachel. Without any further ado, we're going to introduce Carol, Carol Cooper. Amazing woman of God. Over to you, Carol. Please tell us a little bit about yourself, your background. Over to
Thanks. Good evening, everybody. As Sister Joyce said, my name is Carol Cooper. I am a finance professional. I work in the NHS as a senior finance manager. I've had the privilege to work for the NHS for over 30 years, working on contracts and multi-million-pound contracts and helping to secure the contracts that we, you may not know, that we have with hospitals to provide healthcare for our population. I am really passionate about finance, in particular women, working with women, and I am an accountant, professionally qualified accountant, but I'm interested in women and empowering women to talk about their finance, to talk about their money. I have 2 grown children, one at university, one's just graduated from university. I'm married, I've been married for over 30 years, and I have a lot of experience, a lot of challenges, ups and downs in managing money. So I would love to talk to women. I've spoken to quite a few women about managing money. I've given talks, presentations. I've also helped women just to talk about their finances on a personal level, and just to try and work through the challenges and the benefits of managing our money and supporting each other. So I am so excited to be able to join you tonight, and thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Over to you, Shez.
Okay, thank you. That's been great so far. We're now going to have our last panelist, a young, savvy law student who's going to share with us exactly how she utilizes all of the modern technology and apps to financially plan and to run her own business and the like. So without further ado, welcome to Abigail Grant.
Hello, thank you for having me. So my name is Abigail, and I am a law student at Birmingham City University. I'm in my 2nd year, and I'll be moving into my 3rd year. I also work at a financial company called Wesleyan, and I am very passionate about finance in terms of investing, saving, and making an income for yourself. I am obviously quite young, I'm 21, so I don't have as much experience as the other amazing panelists, but I've learned a thing or two along the way, particularly during COVID, and I'm really excited to be able to share a few tips that I've learned along the way.
Thank you so much, Abigail. We're looking forward to what you have to say. I started out at the same age as you, so you're in the right place and you're doing the right thing. Over to Sister Joyce.
Absolutely amazing. So we've heard from, we've had an introduction to our 4 panelists, and you've heard the perspectives that they're going to come from tonight. Please, if you've got any questions, put them in the chat. We'll try and address them if we can. But we're actually going to go straight into a live discussion about finances, about how we empower ourselves financially, about how we manage debt, how we hang our hats where we can reach them. So I wanted to start with a question to Margaret. Margaret, you shared earlier your mother was a single parent. You were married. You had 5 children. That's nearly a football team, half of a football team. And we hear many stories about our elders, how they managed to make ends meet. I heard stories from my mother, for example, how they had to manage on a shoestring. I was one of 6 children, and we didn't have much at all, and yet they managed. And so there are many of these sayings, like, for example, don't hang your hat where you can't reach them. And we want to hear from you. Tell us what were some of the things you did, you know, growing up with young children. You went back to study when your youngest was 16. So how did you manage financially? Now, how did you what sorts of things did you do to make ends meet? We'd love to hear.
Well, a lot of that was actually self-help with what you had, sort of using what you had to make what you needed. Things like recycling for a start. First of all, if you have several children, you do things like when one grows out of a uniform or something like that, it passes down to the other. There were things that you can do in the recycling area as to make over clothes and linen. A small example, you have a sheet that has passed its sell-by date, so to speak, but you need tablecloths, you need maybe cushion covers or chair covers, and learning to sew, and that is so easily picked up, learning to make little things out of what you've got. You can have a great tablecloth or some lovely chair covers or cushion covers out of an old sheet that is no longer viable as a sheet. Clothes that maybe have grown either too big or too small for one can be turned into a decent suit or dress for another with a little tuck here and there. You just had to look at the children you had or the child you had, look at the things that were available and the finances, and you could always make the best of these things. There were some things later, like much later than our days, but you have today, since we're talking about helping people of today, there's things like the recycle, and which I was talking about, but also something called a free cycle that you can share, which you give away something that you cannot in any way use for yourself, but is still usable. And on the same site, you can gain other stuff that people are doing the same thing. So you can be giving away either a chair or something that maybe is too much for your room, and you can be getting a settee or a bed that one of your children need or you do need in the house. Little different things, but it's a big site and it's got so many things to offer and to gain. Things like home economics. I did a lot of knitting. I learned to knit because things were quite expensive. The times were cold. The children needed jumpers, cardigans, and I had to learn to knit. And I knitted, I crocheted. They had lovely crocheted dresses, skirts, cardigans, jumpers, except the school ones because these were specific. And so those, again, you can also share with neighbors, friends, schoolmates as you walk and talk with school. You can swap. So there's so many ways that you could have got by without, going under. You just had to. There's another thing about, I think about learning to teach the children even from this age. And they had this thing, Bobber job, like washing cars. And that also helped themselves, also helped them along as well. The pocket money that, cut down on the pocket money that you had, they could wash cars, they could do a little job for somebody it was a barber job, a shilling. But of course, that was a lot of money then. That was 1/20th of a pound. So it was going a long way. There's so many things you could have done in the home. Baking and in the home economics front, baking, cooking. It was so much easier and cheaper and even healthier than the fast food. It was always efficient, but that was for special occasions. That were treats because you can make so many tasty things at home and make up for that. I mean, that was a start, as to how I sort of managed a lot of those economies in those times.
We will definitely have to come back to you because, returning to some of the things that our foreparents did is something that we have to do. And the other day, a family member sent me a picture, and they've set up a barbecue. And they've got. Does anybody know what a Dutchie is? Those of you who are listening online, if you know what a Dutchie is, please put emoji in if you know what a Dutch pot is. I bet, Abigail, you don't know what a Dutch pot is. Do you know what a Dutch pot is?
Yeah, I think we have one at home.
Okay. Yeah, it's an iron pot really, but it's kind of used in the Caribbean and they call them a Dutch pot. There must be a reason why they call them a Dutch pot. But she'd actually got this Dutch pot on the barbecue. And I asked, what's in the Dutch pot? And you would not guess. You would not believe that she was cooking oxtail in the Dutch pot on the barbecue. And it just made me think. I laughed, but you're cooking a meat in an old-fashioned way, but actually, it's quite doable, and there might be things that we can do to help ourselves, as you mentioned. And so, thank you for sharing. And we will definitely come back to you to some more of your tips. Over to you, Shez, for the next question.
Thank you so much for that, Margaret. And as her daughter, honestly, I can basically testify of all the things she would make for us and the shoes that she would create for us out of Daddy's car lacquer sprays when we needed to go to a wedding and didn't have a new shoe. She goes, bring me the old shoe, bring me Daddy's car lacquer, and we will spray it up for you with some patterns on. So it's amazing. Abigail, we're coming to you now. As a young person and a student, in fact, please tell us, what are some of the struggles that you have had in making ends meet, and a couple of the strategies that you've used to overcome those same challenges financially, etc.?
Yes, so being a uni student living away from home is definitely not easy. It's a lot harder than I had anticipated. Especially financially, it's a lot of responsibility being independent away from your parents for the first time for a lot of people. And one of the biggest struggles I had was just not comparing myself to other people. Before I went into university, it was during the COVID period. I was working really hard to make sure that I would be financially stable in uni. And there were a lot of things that I didn't do so that I could be secure through my uni period. And I had a saying where I would live below my means now so that I can live above, like in my means later. And I think coming to uni, it's really easy to get dragged into everyone else is going out, everyone's going for a meal. And I think it was just having that discipline and sticking to budgeting that was really important to me. And there were times, I remember there was a period when I was really tired of just being so responsible all the time. And I had a sort of backslide moment when I was just not looking at the figures. I was tapping my card like it wasn't connected to a bank account. And eventually I did have to put the brakes on it, and I did have to come back to reality. And the reality is, I know that planning for your future is always going to be worth it. Planning for the next week is always going to be worth it. So just coming back into budgeting, I found it easier to not look at my account and see a large sum. So I separate my money for different things that I need, whether that's bills. I have a pot for bills, aside for, if I do want to have a little treat. And then we have savings and investments all separated so that I know that when I'm looking at this pot, this is for this thing. And I found that did really help to focus my mind and focus my spending. Another thing that I found, especially for a long period of not indulging, not treating myself, I got in, I guess what you call like a deficit, and I would have random urges to just splurge and spend, especially when the shops opened up after COVID. So I had to get this rule. So for small purchases, if I still felt the same way I felt the next day, then it was something to be considered. If it was a large purchase, like buying a new car, which I really did not need, I gave myself a week, 2 weeks, a month. If I felt the same, then it's something to think about. And that really helped me to just not splurge and impulse buy anymore. It feels nice in the moment, but sometimes when you look back and you think, did I need this? No. So, and the other thing that I found difficult as well was the cooking side of things and eating out. There was a period where I was eating out a lot, and I found that by buying food, buying in bulk, cooking up, I actually did find a joy in cooking, which was nice. I had a new hobby, and it saved me a lot of money being able to meal plan. So definitely, I think the hardest thing is really just having a set mindset of budgeting and sticking with that. And the biggest thing in overcoming that is being able to actually visualize your finances in terms of what you have, what you need, and where it needs to go. So yeah, that really helped me.
Thank you so much for that, Abigail. Abigail, you mentioned some key words there. First of all, I'm going to ask you to expound on pot, what you mean by pot. But you mentioned things about like strict budgeting so that you could actually save for university. How did you invest your finances? When you say invest, what did you do, and what's all this about pots, etc.? And maybe Carol will chip in and help you after that as well.
Yeah, so in terms of pots, so when I save, I like to separate my money, as I said. It started off with little jars from Wilko. I just bought labels and I bought the jars, and I would have my money take out in cash, because that's the other thing. Sometimes when you look in the bank account, see the figure, it's very easy. But when it's in cash, I found that I was less likely to spend it. So I put it aside in jars. A step up from that, I did actually get a Monzo account, and they have a feature where you can create pots on Monzo. They're not exactly saving accounts, but it's just separations of your current account money. So I had pots for different things. So when I was saving for my car, I had a car pot. I have a utilities pot for my bills. I have a pot for a rainy day, and even a pot for just my eating out money. So when that's down, no more eating out, and it just helps me to just focus my money and just have a bit more control over how I was living my life. I can't remember the other thing you wanted to elaborate on.
It was just the pots and how you actually financially invested.
Yes. Okay. So in terms of investing, this was something that I got into in lockdown, and I became a real geek about it. I don't know why, it just excites me. But I started investing in the stock market, and I did that through an app called Trading 212. A lot of people might have heard it, or you might not have. At the time, you were able to investing with no fees. At the moment, I do believe they have a small fee, but you'd have to check. I think it's only about 1.9%. But what I did was I invested in the stock market, which for those that don't know, it's just this massive sort of underground business where you can trade and sell shares of companies. So if you wanted to buy a share of Amazon, and they have fractional shares as well. So one share of Amazon, I'm not sure the price, but as an example, it could be £80, but you only have £10 a share to spend in it. You could buy a fractional share, and that just means that when a company does well, when a company goes up in their pricing, then you would also make a return in your investment as well. And it is something that's been going on for many years. A lot of people might know about it. And what I did was I automated those investments. So you can set up direct debits to the app, and that's what I did, because I do like to be a little bit more hands-off in terms of my finances. So that was an automated thing in terms of investing in the stock market, and investing in property is something that I am looking to get into as well. I also invested in Bitcoin, in cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin and Ethereum, which I did on an app called Coinbase. It's also a free app. So and these are just different ways for me to diversify where my money was so that it can make the most money for me, instead of it just sitting in a bank account, maybe getting 2% interest a year. That was just one thing that I did in terms of investing.
Wow, thank you so much. That is so enlightening, and I do hope that other young people are listening, especially when you talk about Bitcoin and Ethereum. And the key thing for me that you said is, why leave your money in a government bank sitting there getting 0.0% when you can do something with it to make money for university? Well done. And I hand over to Sister Joyce. Thank you. We'll definitely come back to some of those. Thank you.
Thank you, Abigail. Thank you, Shez. I'm just going to move across to Carol, because Carol, you mentioned earlier on that you love strict budgeting and managing finance, and we want to hear a little bit about your story and how your passion and interest in personal finances. So tell us some tips for how you've managed your personal finances.
Okay, thanks. And well done, Abigail. You're doing really well.
Thank you.
So in terms of my tips for managing money, I just want people to think, I want women to think about money and what emotions come to mind when you think about managing your money. I think nowadays people are becoming less afraid of talking about money. And so I found it easier to talk with women and be open about the challenges and the benefits of managing your money. So from the work that I've been doing so far, I've just selected a few tips that I think you might find useful today. So one of them, the first tip, is actually to adopt a positive mindset. How do you think about money? Do you think you will always be broke? Because that does not have to be the case. You should adopt a mindset to say, this is my today and what is my future going to be, and how am I going to plan to achieve that future? Because money is just a tool. It allows you to live your life. So you need to be able to manage that tool to allow you to do the things that you would like to do in life. The next thing to think about is being honest. Look at your income and look at your expenditure. In particular, be honest with yourself about what money you do actually have. Don't pretend that you've got more than you have. And also, in terms of expenditure, those little bills that may be hidden somewhere that you try to forget about, pull everything out. What are you dealing with? So be honest with yourself. And also, if you want to share with other people, if you can find a confidential friend or just somebody who's interested in money management, talk with them. Talk about your money and what things you find useful or what challenges you come across. The next thing I would recommend, like Abigail, budget. Budget, budget, budget. I have practiced a budget for the last, I would say, 30 years. I started with a book, just a simple exercise book and a pen, and I wrote everything down in there. And I've developed now to a spreadsheet. I know not everybody likes to look at using Excel or using a spreadsheet, but if you can, I find it really useful. And what I do is I detail all my income that I expect for the year and also all my bills going out. And your income should equal your expenditure. In fact, it's even better when you have a little surplus at the bottom. And if you haven't got a surplus, or if your income doesn't equal your expenditure, go through the figures again, find out why you have those issues, and then target the areas that you need to look at. So for example, that gym membership that you don't even use and you forgot about that direct debit, cancel it. Go back and look. If you don't go to the gym, why have you got a direct debit? Sometimes we even forget some of the little direct debits that we've got sitting on the account. Go through all your expenditure. As I said earlier, be honest. Be honest with yourself. Don't lie to yourself. Don't hide that bill. What's the point? Don't put your head in the sand. And then go through. There are some times in the year where you'll spend more money and sometimes you'll spend less. And then you know when you're likely to be able to do certain things at certain times of the year. So birthdays, for example, or anniversaries or holidays, you know that you'll be spending more in those times. So make sure you align your income and your expenditure to allow you to do those things. The next point I would say is learn from your mistakes. We all make mistakes. I don't mind. I don't care who you are. People who have multi-million-pound companies and businesses, if you read their autobiographies, you would be surprised at how many times they've actually lost money and made mistakes. But what you do is you learn from your mistakes and then you move on. So never be afraid to fail. Never think, oh, why did I make that financial decision? What you think is, I made that financial decision. That's what happened. I don't want to do that again. I'm going to do something different. And finally, I would say on tips for managing your money, educate yourself. There is so much information on the internet, free information, YouTube channels that are giving information that you don't even need to pay nowadays for any education. The time that we spend doing some things like watching the television, we could be watching a video that would educate ourselves about our money. And Abigail mentioned some things before. This thing here, your smartphone, you can download so many apps on this smartphone that will help you to manage your money. I have my bank account on here. I have Trading 212 on here as well. I also have other little apps on here that help me. I have a credit score app that will actually tell me what my credit score is. I don't need to pay somebody. So there are lots of things that you can do to educate yourself about money. And as I said, spend your time wisely. Try and look at ways that you can manage what you have, and then looking at investments of how you can make that money go further and what you can do around investing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Carol, for that. I think you're right. Sometimes we do bury our heads in the sand because it just feels overwhelming. And there'll be women out there that's listening to this and thinking it's all well and good talking about investing in the trade market, and I don't know where my next food's coming from for my children, and I don't know, the research evidence is telling us that so many people are at food bank. Does this make any sense to them? It might seem like what we're talking about tonight doesn't relate to people who are really, really struggling and really, really struggling in debt. So I want to go to Rachel. Rachel, who works for Christians Against Poverty. And, Rachel, you must, through your work, come across people, and I know I'm deviating a little bit here, come across people who are really, really struggling on the poverty line. What would you say to those people today in the context of if they've got debts, how they manage their debt, and is what we're saying making make sense?
Yeah, thank you, Joyce. Well, yeah, as you say, many of our clients do live below the poverty line. I think about 50% of clients who come to CAP live below the poverty line. So for them, sometimes it is about the struggle to put food on the table. Sometimes it's about making a decision between food and heating or lighting, some of those real basics. Over 2.4 million people in the UK are in destitution, and with the cost of living crisis that we keep hearing about, energy bills going up, it's likely that millions more are going to find themselves in that situation. Destitution is when some of those basics are missing, so things like being able to feed yourself, keep yourself warm, keep yourself dry. So we do face quite a critical situation at the moment in the UK. My advice, if somebody is in debt, if someone's struggling with debt, is get help immediately. Do not delay. And I think on the screen there is a phone number next to my name, and it's 0800 328 0006, and that is CAP's free helpline for anyone who needs help. We offer free debt advice through the local church to anyone who needs help with debts. No matter how big or how small, please seek some help. Don't bury your head in the sand thinking it'll go away. We know from our clients that on average it can take 2 years to get in touch with somebody when people start having debt issues. Often associated with debt is shame or embarrassment. People will just think it'll just go away, but it won't. And so you really, really need to seek help. 58% of our clients tell us they don't get in touch with someone because they're embarrassed. 62% think they can sort it out themselves, and 34% think there's no one who can help them. But there's always help. There's always help out there, and there's always hope. And as I said at the beginning, that's why we always work through the local church, because we want to see lives transformed, and we don't want to just see lives transformed practically. We want to see lives transformed by people coming to know Jesus and the hope that he can give them and the abundant life that he can give them. So get in touch with CAP. And there's other people. It's not just CAP. There's Citizens Advice. There might be local organisations in the town or city that you live in. The utility companies, the banks, other creditors. They all have teams who want to help people. They would much rather help you sort out your problems and help you pay any debts you have to them than see them escalate. That those people they want to help work with you as well. And keep all your paperwork. Don't keep the mail unopened, and don't just sort of throw it away or hide it away. Keep the paperwork, because then when you do get help, it's easier for people to start unraveling what's going on and find you the best solutions and the best routes out of debt, because there is a way out of it.
Thank you so much, Rachel. I was just thinking about what you said about that shame and people being so embarrassed about finding themselves in debt, struggling to make ends meet. And this is an open question, really. What can we do to support people? Because my experience, and I've worked in mental health services for over 30 years, and worked with some very vulnerable people, because often people who are in debt have multiple other issues as well. And actually sitting down and opening these letters that's going to make them feel more depressed is the last thing that's on their minds to do. So I'm just wondering, from a practical point of view, what are some of the things that could be done? For example, CAP, what does CAP do? And I'm going to come to Carol as well, and maybe Margaret, on a practical level, and yourself, Abigail, that could be done to support people who are in this situation. Start with Margaret. Sorry, start with Rachel.
Is now the time to share about CAP services, or shall we come to that? Yeah. Well, I mean, at CAP we have a number of services that local churches can run to help people in their churches, but also more widely in the local community. I'm going to start by talking about our CAP Money budgeting course, because so many of the principles that Abigail was talking about are found in our CAP Money course. Abigail talked about having pots, and that is one of the key principles of our CAP Money course, having a kind of day-to-day cash account for all your day-to-day things like food and clothing, having another account to pay your utility bills, your regular payments, and having a savings account. And that's one of the principles of our CAP Money course. Things like cutting back, cutting costs, cutting out, working out what are those essential things that you need, or what are the things that you can live without. What are your, again, as Abigail said, she does that little test to see if in a week or the next day she still wants that thing, or has that been a whim that has passed away. So yeah, we offer a 3-week CAP money budgeting course that local churches, you can train somebody up and they can run that in the church and in the community. And that's a really practical way that churches can offer some support to people who need that help to use their money, budget their money in an effective way. We also have something called Life Skills, and that's an 8-week course. And that looks at some of the things that Margaret was talking about, living well on a budget, cooking effectively, making sure there's no waste, shopping well on a budget, looking at the most thrifty way to shop and to buy things. And maybe for Shez, growing up with Margaret, she learnt all these things naturally in her family situation. But for some people, they don't have those examples, they don't have those role models. And so again, a course that a local church can run to equip people in their community. And that life skills course is not just a sort of practical course. We encourage that to happen in a community atmosphere, because so often people living on a low income or struggling with money, a really big factor that we see is loneliness and isolation. As they're sort of struggling with debt, they're embarrassed, they feel guilty about not being able to manage their money, they sort of shut down from perhaps other connections with the outside world. I think the last 2 years we've all had a sense of loneliness, haven't we? Isolation. We know what it's like. But for some of CAP's clients, that is the daily reality of not having contact and community with other people. So on our life skills course, we always encourage a church to host that, perhaps with refreshments, with hospitality. So people are welcomed into some fellowship as well, meeting other people, building friendships. And alongside that, some coaching, some one-to-one coaching. They can start to make their own decisions, feel empowered in the decisions they're making, and build back some self-esteem and confidence, because again, that can be some of the things that are lost. Similarly, we have something called job clubs, and they run over 8 weeks with the community and coaching aspect as well. As you said, Joyce, redundancies have been rising, particularly during the pandemic. People were losing jobs, and our job clubs are an opportunity to build back confidence again, to help people write their CV, to practice for interviews. If people have been in jobs for 20 years and have lost them all of a sudden, it can be really hard to get back that confidence to apply again. And then we have our debt help for those whose debt is unmanageable. And again, we always work with the local church, but we work on a one-to-one basis. We go into a client's home, and we see them in their environment where they feel comfortable. Although I've talked a lot about the work of the church here, it is the individual that we want to see. We want to see their life transformed. So we will work one-to-one, and together with our experts in head office, who are the real experts on managing debt, we'll work out an individual budget and an individual route out of debt for each person, each debt client. So there's some of the things we offer. Maybe someone can put in the chat how to contact us or something, or go to our website capuk.org, and you'll be able to find out all about our different services there. But that's one of the ways people can help by through the local church, as I say, bringing hope and help. We can make a difference for those who are struggling.
And that's absolutely amazing to hear that overview of all the work that you're doing. And I do know that you're having dialogue with our Director of Social Action, Minister Maxine Douglas, about how we can roll this out and what we can do across our churches. And I know you also mentioned that if people want to donate to CAP, they can go to your website to make a donation as well. But we're really, we'll come back to that towards the end, just a summary of your services and also how people can make a donation. But before we move on to the next question, I just wanted to ask Margaret and Carol and Abigail, your advice for, someone's in debt. Just your tips. It'd be helpful to hear from a youth perspective, Abigail, how if someone's in debt, a friend comes to you and say, "Oh, Abigail, I'm overwhelmed. I've used all my student grant money. I've still got 2 months to go, and I can't go to Mommy Bank for the money like some of our students do." What would your advice be? And I'll come to Margaret next, and then Carol, and then back over to our shares.
So that is the situation for a lot of people in university, even some of my friends, and it can be really, really tough. And I think sometimes the toughest part is talking about it, being honest about it, to actually get that advice, get that help. I'm obviously not a financial advisor, but the best thing that I could say in terms of helping you get through that period, if you're able to, university can be very, very stressful and very taxing in terms of the work that you have to do. If you are able to get a weekend part-time job alongside your studies, then I would recommend doing that, and just creating a really strict mindset on the things that your expenditure and your income. Sometimes you really do have to live below your means. I remember when I was trying to get through that rough period, I had to sacrifice some things that I normally would do in order to fulfill the things that I needed to do. And it can be hard making that shift of living differently, but it's really important to really weed out the things that you can sacrifice, whether that is eating out, whether it's just taking that walk instead of paying for that Uber, because the Ubers do add up. And just really literally the small things that look small in your life that are causing an expenditure, really sitting down and talking to yourself and saying, okay, we can get rid of this, we can get rid of that, and seeing how you can redirect your expenditure into savings or income or towards that debt is something I'd recommend. And sometimes it's even the smallest amount of money to put aside. It could be £5 a week. Every little helps when it comes to clearing off debt, and you really just have to get in that mindset of really actually sitting down and tackling the important issue of debt. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That word sacrifice, we don't like that word, do we? Sacrificing something. No, thank you for that, Abigail. Over to Margaret and then Carol.
Okay. Yes, I was thinking of some of the stuff that can be done today. As I was saying earlier on, you had the car washing, newspaper round, and all that's no longer. But people in college now, I think you have things like the best time of the day to shop. You might have only a small amount of money, and you have to eat for the rest of the week. No matter how bad things are, you're going to need to eat. So you have times of the day when you can shop with things maybe a third, a quarter, or even less of the price. And these are things that shops, supermarkets, and many other establishments may have reduced closer to the end of the day, that if you went out to shop at 10 o'clock in the morning, you'll be buying something at full price. And it finishes, they're saying the best before is that day. Not that it's not good after that day, but best before. So you shop in the morning and you buy a loaf of bread, 10 o'clock for £1.50. and you may be able to shop in the evening for the same loaf of bread for 10 pence. Think of how much you save in that particular one item, and so many other different things you can do. Things, if you have excess clothes that you no longer need, or surplus for the moment, you can think about selling some of those. You can print, you're studying, you're able to print out little leaflets or cards and drop them to doors offering your services for ironing, maybe washing and not cleaning, ironing, and some people do need, we pay good money for these. You can do hair, so many other things that you can do for people. Maybe it depends on what area you're in. You can offer to help people with writing. Other students who might be more well off, you can help them with writing for them and things like that. There's so many little ways that you can earn extra. And it's not always easy to say going into a shop, because most of the jobs are taken in supermarkets, shops. But self-help in these areas, as said, doing your ironing, your cleaning, your hair plaiting, your maybe selling the clothes that you no longer need for the moment, and the shopping at particular times where you get the best bargain, the same items that you would have bought 4, 5, 6 times, shop 2 hours earlier. You spend a fraction of the price, and you're having your meal for the week for a fraction of the cost. Things like that. It's maybe at that particular moment it's not easy to save and invest, because you're at the line where you want to eat, and that's the most, and you want to keep learning, and that's the most important thing. So whatever finance you have will probably just be going to maybe your rent and your classes or whatever. But things like eating and so on is most important. Keeping warm, as I said. Okay, there are some very, very good charity shops. I've seen stars going into charity shop and coming out with some great stuff that I think, my goodness, they can afford to throw a better, but or even different, but they're going. And so you want to keep warm. It's some great charity shops that you can find stuff that will keep you going until you do what you have to do, until you're able to do what you want to do. And that's my advice. There's things that you can do, that you have to do at the moment. And the time will come when you do what you really want to do. But you can keep going with little things like this. As for the churches, and these are more on a one-to-one basis that you'll be able to say to somebody as you walking along the street. You're talking about somebody, they begin to talk about how times are hard, how difficult things, and you get into a conversation. These are little ideas that you can drop into them. Need not be a student. It could be anybody that thinking about how difficult life is. Sewing, people can, most people, even if you're on the breadline, have a smartphone, because that's part of your life nowadays. And so many things you can learn on the internet. Sewing material, if you're in desperate need for a skirt or a top or something, you can learn that on the internet. So easy. But obviously, there's a drawback with that. You may not have a machine. But
yeah, that's so true. And I mean, so many amazing ideas. And the thing that stands out most from what you've just said, Margaret, is Abigail, there was something about sacrifice, and I think what has come out to me is we've got to put pride aside. There's certain things we think, well, no, I'm not going to do that. This is not going to live below my means. I'm entitled to this. And sometimes we do have to put pride aside to make ends meet. So thank you so much for some of those tips that you've just shared. And over to Carol, because we've got a few other questions, and I can see Shez is bursting to ask the next question. So just a couple of tips. I know you covered some of this before, but maybe if there's anything else you want to add.
Just really encouraged by all that's been said, really. One thing I would say is that as Margaret said, you do what you have to do until you do what you would like to do. And one thing that I did was school uniforms. You don't always have to so you have secondhand uniforms. I know some people don't like them if they're uniforms that have already been worn, but I remember when my children were at school, some of the times we buy a uniform and it doesn't fit. We don't even open the packet. What we used to do is we used to trade them. So we used to give the packets to other mums, and it would save you on buying school uniforms. So that was one little tip that I learned from when my children were at school. And also cooking, cook more. I think sometimes we're too keen on the takeaways. If we just cook basic meals, I used to be able to stretch that. So spaghetti bolognese was my favourite meal that I used to cook, because the pasta was about 50p for the pack and mince was cheap, and you just needed a tin of tomatoes for 20p and you had a meal. So there are lots of things that you can do to make the money stretch.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Over to Shez.
I just want to say absolutely everything that you have said. It's so imperative that we take these things on board. This whole forum of financial education, it's important for every listener out there. So send your friends a message right now on social media, say get online and listen to this. And after you see the recording, spread and share, because we all are forever learning. Just a few things I've picked up from what everybody has said, Rachel, Abigail, Carol, and my mother, is sometimes, you know what, just say for 1 year, I'm having no takeaways. No takeaways for a year. Say that I'm not going to buy any clothes for a year. Okay? Say that I'm only going to do social things for a year that are free. Stop following what the Joneses do. If your friends are all eating out, I'm not coming. You don't have to explain why, just I'm not coming. Don't feel pressure by anybody to explain, or pressure to go in and do and then put yourself in more debt. So I just wanted to add those few things. But the next question, I believe Rachel touched on this when she spoke. It is about abundance. And I just want to ask each of you in like 1 minute perhaps, just what do you think? Do you think Christian women struggle with the concept of abundance and abundance life? And I don't mean financially, but just abundance living. What do you think about that subject? Do you think we struggle with that? And any advice, not financial advice necessarily, because we're not financial entrepreneurs in that regard, but just about entrepreneurship, living abundantly as Christian women, and not just saying, oh, well, we're here to suffer, we've got to live like this. What do you think? And I'm going to start off with Abigail. Just you got 60 seconds or more just to think about that.
So I do think that some people struggle with the abundant living, and I think it's understandable, because a lot of times if you have a lot of stress in terms of financial responsibility, it can get so overwhelming. One thing that I found helps in moments like that, because it can be really overwhelming. It can get you down when you're in that patch where you're not really sure how you're going to get out of it. It's just taking a moment to literally nitpick everything in your life to be thankful for. And even the fact that we have a roof over our head, water to drink, food to eat, there is so much to be thankful for. I remember I went to Malawi a couple years ago for a volunteering trip, and it was so humbling to see how they had so little and they were so joyous. Their joy rubbed off on us. We thought we were there to help them, but they helped us in so many ways. And I think it's really just taking that time to actually appreciate, wow, like God really made me, he really has me, and he's really got this, and he's given me the tools that I need to get through anything that I'm faced with in my life. It might not be today and it might not be next week, but I know that I'm going to come through this. And just having that hope, whether you're personal faith or not, just having that hope that it's going to be okay. And my life is joyous because I have air in my lungs.
Mm.
Thank you so much. That same question over to Rachel, please.
Yeah, so I think you asked us, Shez, not to just think of it sort of financially, but with that whole concept of abundant life more generally, and I think many women do, and I do struggle with that. I think sometimes that can stem from us not seeing ourselves the way God sees us. We often can have unhealthy, ungodly beliefs about ourselves, and these can stem from all sorts of reasons: family backgrounds, education, stereotypes that can be placed on us. So I think we have to really remember that God has created us to live abundantly, and I think part of that is about living in the knowledge of our inherent value as children of God, and the freedom that brings. And abundant living, I think, is when those fruits of the Spirit can be evident within us: love and joy and peace and kindness. It's not necessarily the material things that we have that give us abundant life, but I think it is knowing who we are as children of God. I agree with Abigail as well that being thankful and being grateful. Brené Brown, if anyone's familiar with her, talks about gratitude practices and getting into the habit of maybe writing a gratitude journal, logging just a few things every day to be thankful for, however big or small, and that can help us be sort of quite abundant in the way we live. And just to finish, I think I was reflecting on this. I like that verse in Philippians when Paul says, though, I'm not saying this because I am in need, for I have learnt to be content in whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation. And I think if we can learn to live like that, then we can have abundant life.
Thank you. And over to yourself, Carol. Would you like to just contribute your idea and your concept of women, and do we embrace this, or how we embrace it?
Yeah, and we should embrace life, abundant life, not just from a financial standpoint, but in the Bible it says, I come that we might have life more abundantly, and it's life that can be life in joy, abundant health, abundant relationships. It's not just about money, it's about enjoying the life that God has given to us and making the most out of that life. And that's where, or how I see abundance, it's a 360 thing. It's not just money, it's about our health, our relationships, and the joy that we get from serving God.
Thank you. Sister Joyce, I'm going to ask you. I'm putting that back to you, Sister Joyce. What do you think about that whole?
It's really interesting because I put that question out last week on Facebook, and I had so many different responses. I think sometimes this whole concept of I don't think it's just about women. I think about Christians, that contentment and being contented and so forth, people can actually feel guilty for having abundance, and feel that it's not for them, it's for others and not for them. On the other hand, I had responses that was about, actually, God made us to be the head and not the tail, above and not beneath. So actually, we should embrace abundance. And I think my own personal view is that we should embrace abundance, but I do think we sometimes it's about our faith, but also I think it's cultural as well. It can be cultural in terms that can impact people actually from walking in the fullness of abundance that God has prepared and ordained for us. And as Rachel said, I quite like that. concept of the gratitude book, because when you begin to write down all the things that God has done and has been doing, and where he's taken you from and where he's bringing you to, you realize just how blessed you are. Sometimes you can't see it. So yeah, that's my thought. I think we need to open our minds more to that wider abundance and embrace it. And as God gives to us, we pour back out to others as well.
I think you're absolutely right. And even as those listening, even those in the ministry, I think it's an area that can be taught on and preached on, even in the work, in the Sunday services or midweek services, because it is scriptural. And I think that every one of us, we are where we are based on the abundance of our thoughts about life and our concepts. And I agree with you, Joyce, that I think we should embrace abundant living without having to feel guilty. I don't think as Christians and women or culturally, we should have to feel that we have to live a lowly life, because God has called you to live in abundance. He said you should lack no good thing. What does that mean? To lack no good thing. My son drives me to work the 2 days I have to go in, and we have a devotion. He said to me one day, Mummy, as our devotion, he said, Mummy, I know you don't like journeying into work on London transport. You hate that journey because sometimes it's 2 hours to come home. He goes, but today I just want you to enjoy it. I just want you to be grateful that you can actually travel. I want you to enjoy that you can see people. I want you to enjoy that you've got clothes on your back. I want you to enjoy that you can afford to go on the train and that you've got a job to go to. And I felt, oh, okay then. And I was so he made me feel so humbling because I really do not like the journey. But he turned it around to say, be grateful. It comes onto the gratitude list of Rachel. Be grateful that you can take this journey. And if you do write a gratitude list and book and journal, who knows, in time you might publish it. That's how a lot of these journals become bestsellers. So thank you very much for everybody addressing that question about abundant living. Let's embrace it, not just financially, but your health, your family, your relationships. You'll go for a walk and feel the grass under your feet. Listen to the birds outside. Back over to you, Joyce. Thank you.
No, thank you so much for the points, and for all our panelists, the points that you've pulled out on that, because as you say, abundance isn't just about it is about your health. It is about taking control in certain aspects of your life that maybe not deliberately, but we've let go of, but it is within our gifts to make a difference. And it all starts with one step. It all starts with that little step, like Rachel and Carol said, for example. It all starts with perhaps just opening that envelope, not burying your head in the sand and saying, right, maybe I can do something about this. Let's just take one. It may be that it's just having a conversation with someone, a trusted individual, to just break that shame, break that whatever it is that's holding us back. Just have a conversation with someone that can help you. I know sometimes you have a conversation with someone, you can feel worse, but choose the people wisely that you have that conversation with, and just start by taking the first step. It all begins with one step. I wanted to just ask another question about entrepreneurship and businesses, and I shared earlier on, I'm trying to find the book, I shared earlier on about this book by Dr. Sharon Byfield called Compelling the Fight for a Faith School. Now, the school's called King Solomon, and it's an international business school. Now, I'll put the book up again, available on Amazon.com. But what was interesting about the book launch was listening to the children. So the children grow. They're schooled in an environment where business is encouraged, where entrepreneurship is encouraged. So we heard about young children during the pandemic using their creative minds, and they developed it was called a bag of love, and it had little different things in that they just sold for really small amounts that would go to people who maybe shut-ins, who couldn't come out. And we heard stories of poetry and so many different skills, and I think there is something about how you nurture entrepreneurship from a very young age. And we heard from Margaret some real life examples, and I would just give a couple of examples of my late mother. You know, she made everything: drops, ginger beer, cushion covers. She knitted clothes, she made clothes, she made hats, lined them, and she sold them. Cakes, she sold them. You know, some of the things that we take for granted as children, our parents were real pioneers and entrepreneurs. Some of our parents were real pioneers and entrepreneurs. And let's not take that for granted. And I think I do want to ask that question. We can hear some lovely music in the background as well. Maybe it's a budding entrepreneur coming through. But I do want to ask that question about, you know, entrepreneurship and business thinking in that way, and how can we foster and encourage that? So I'll start with Rachel, then Carol, then Abigail, and then we'll come to Margaret. Just in, you know, just a very, very quick response.
I guess it's encouraging children from a young age in their ideas to have a go, and not necessarily measuring it in terms of how financially successful it is, but encouraging their ideas so they can learn what works, what doesn't work, and it gives them a confidence then to try things and not be afraid of failure, because entrepreneurship, sometimes things work and sometimes they don't, but if we don't allow young people to have a go, then they'll never get that experience of both the success and the times when it doesn't quite work. So I think perhaps that would be the main thing I would say, to encourage it while people are young. I suppose the other thing I was just thinking of as you were speaking is there's so many ways now online you can just be a bit creative. I remember last year when they were going to start letting us meet in gardens again, and I didn't have any garden furniture, and you know, this wasn't me being an entrepreneur, but other people are entrepreneurial, just selling things on marketplace and different online channels. I didn't want to buy lots of new or any new expensive garden furniture, but I wanted something so we could have people in the garden. So those who were being entrepreneurial on Facebook Marketplace, I just was able to buy something at a good price. It served the purpose, and I'm thankful for their entrepreneur activities that allowed me to grab a bit of a bargain.
Thank you so much for that contribution. Over to, who was next? Carol.
So we have so many women entrepreneurs that sometimes I don't even know if we really appreciate the amount of women that are starting new businesses. Yeah. And I think, you know, we should support the women that are trying, you know, even if it means you don't buy from, you know, you buy from one place rather than another, to support women in their endeavors. So, for example, if somebody's starting to bake cakes to earn a bit of money and you've got a birthday coming up, buy a cake from that person, support them, show them that what they're doing, they can make a little business out of. So that entrepreneurship, you're supporting them and encouraging them to develop. And I think young people, they try lots of different things, and I think we need to encourage them. So I remember when my son was at school, he used to change the back of phones. So he would get a different color back for the phone, because at that time you couldn't get, I think it was the white back of a phone, and he used to change that and then sell it, and people pay him. And I used to encourage him because I realized it was an entrepreneur thing that he was trying. So I think when we see women trying, and also if young people are trying, support their business, and show them that you are behind them in what they're doing.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Abigail?
Yes. So growing up, I think my mum was the one that really got me into being an entrepreneur. She has a very entrepreneurial mind. So growing up, I had that as an example, but a lot of people don't. And I do know a lot of people that they have really great ideas, but they think that we're too young, or they don't know how to get started. They're overwhelmed by the massive markets that there are. But my advice would be to just start. There's no harm in trying. The worst that can happen if you don't try is that you just won't succeed. So just give it a go and believe in yourself. We're not too young. I was doing an online business of selling hair just before COVID. And before that, I had another online store. There's so many things that you can do. You can make designs on T-shirts and sell them. And it's exciting because you can really do something for yourself and have your own little baby that you nurture and grow. And I say just give it a try. One of my friends is a lash tech. She has her own business as a lash tech and she's doing well. My sister is a nail tech. My brother is very hands-on with a lot of things. And there's just so much that we can do. I really say that give yourself a shot, give yourself a try. Just how you would go to Primark and buy clothes. You can sell clothes too. There's no reason why people shouldn't come to you for it. Like, just believe in yourself and give it a try, and you'll be surprised how people will rally around and support you. I was definitely surprised by the support that I got. And I think it's great being young and starting something like that, because people will look up to you and they will try to model what you're doing. So absolutely, go for it. You got this.
Exactly what you said is brilliant. It's brilliant. I think we were going to go over to Margaret.
Okay. I excuse me. I'll be coming from more of a standpoint from a parental standpoint, sort of starting the children when they're quite young, to teach them the financial responsibility. I'm thinking of a scripture that says, train up a child in the way he should go, and then he will not depart from it. If you start them off by making them responsible for doing little jobs around the house, agreeing with them, you're coming into a business partnership with them. I'm going to agree, we're going to agree into something here. I will pay you so much per week for this job, per day for that job and for that job. And you list them out, and he or she is going to realize at the end of the week, I'll be £2 or £1.50 or so much. And you're going to at the same time show to them, well, when you've made your £2.50, if you have a piggy bank and you save some of that, because my mother always said, never leave your purse empty. She used to say, even if a halfpenny said that to keep the devil out of your purse. I'm not sure what that meant, but she would never ever leave your purse empty. So once you come to agreement with them, because young people, children are very savvy, from a very young age. And you come into agreement with them, you're going to be paid so much per week for doing this job, that job, that job. At the end of the week, you've tallied out, you're coming to me, I'm paying you, you've earned your £2.50. At least £1 should be in your piggy bank. And you have enough of your £1.50 to blow on whatever you want. but you are going to watch your £1 grow, and you've got to stick to the bargain, because that encourages them to be business minded. They're going to start, and I could see children looking in the piggy bank to see how much they've got now, because they are interested in seeing their business grow, in seeing their finance grow, and that stays with them. And once they find that they can, at the end of certain period, you have so much in your piggy bank. Oh my goodness, look what I've done. Or now you're thinking what I could do. They're beginning to think what, and they themselves will probably start coming up with different ideas. What if I did this? Could you give me an extra 50 pence? What if, because, and before you know it, they are beginning to find ways of earning more money than you. But I think that I'm coming from a standpoint of giving your children that start, so that when they come to Abigail's age, I mean, she's done fantastically, but you find most and haven't got that head start. And I think this is the way to, I would start from parental point, coming into a bargain with them, and they can keep bargaining. They call you out, oh, what you said, oh, what you said. So you have to be very, bargain, keep to your bargain, and encourage them to grow. That's my standpoint.
Sister Joyce, can I just think with the children, Sister Joyce?
Yeah.
With my, we were moving from London up to Hertfordshire, and I said to him, we can't carry all these toys. You know, when children are young, people buy them so many toys, and I said, there's no way we can carry all these toys. He said, are we going to carry them to charity shop? I said, no, you're going to sell them. So I said, put them all in the bath, wash them all, and put them to dry. Then get that white masking tape and write on it 50p, 10p. Then I made him do up leaflets, and I printed them. I said, you deliver it to all the neighbourhood and tell them this day outside, because we lived in a flat with a communal garden at the time. Said on this day outside we're going to have a sale, and I told him to bring one of his school friends, and I made him do all the door dropping of the leaflets. We got up early in the morning, him and his friend, 5, nearly 6. They laid out all their toys, 10 pence, 15 pence, 5 pence. I said, sell them all. Don't come in the house without selling them all. And they're only 5 and 6. I was watching over them. And they sold most of it. I mean, even if they gave away for 5p, 10p, it was an idea of teaching them how to sell and how to make money. And they were so proud of themselves. And I'd bring them out sandwiches, but they sold all the toys that were to be sold. I said, see, why give it to the charity shop for them to sell when you can sell it yourself? And from then, that's where my son, I think, got a little bit of the how to be savvy. He'd go to secondary school now. He'd say, Mommy, can you buy the big bag of Haribo's that have little bags of Haribo's in? I said, why? It's too much sweets. He goes, I know what I'm doing, Mom. I know what I'm doing. He only take the bag to school and selling them. So I say that to say, we have to teach our children how to be wise like the ants. Over to you, Joyce.
No, I think thank you all for, those examples and encouragement, because I think we do have to teach our young ones to be savvy. I'm not sure how much mainstream schools encourage that entrepreneurship. I know, for example, my sons used to bring things to sell, and they'd get in trouble, or they'd have to try and do it, hide, and and it often crossed my mind, instead of stopping them, that they should put some governance around it, because it's important to have governance and know what's going on in your school, and be very careful. But actually, if you put a framework around it and a policy and some governance, actually what you're doing is encouraging that creativity in young people. So I do think that's and we do want to celebrate our women who are business people, women out there that are running businesses, that have decided to transition and own your own company or push yourself that little bit further. We celebrate you. We really celebrate you, and we want to encourage you to, get the right advice. Sometimes it feels a little bit scary to make that step, and sometimes it's just not. The scariness is about just not knowing, not having the right information. So we want to encourage that as well, because actually for every woman that becomes economically empowered, that has such an impact on your children, your family. It says it takes a village to raise a child. So that economic empowerment actually then it has a ripple effect. So I think there's some work for us to do around that. Shez, I can see you itching to say something.
No, I totally agree with you, Sister Joyce. And I was thinking what you were saying about women when we set the ball rolling. What image was in my head was a tree. And I do look at women as life givers because they bring forward the children. So I looked at the woman as a tree. And out of that one tree, so many fruits can be the result. But not just the fruits, like an apple tree, not just the apples. But in each apple is about 3 seeds. And in each of those seeds is more apples. So while it starts with you then sow, and the apple, which are your children and their friends, are the results. And then when they open the apple, each apple has another 3 seeds, and it goes on. And it is important for us as women and mothers to teach this, because the schools are not teaching it. They are teaching the algebra and the like. And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that, but we do need financial education. If you happen to send your children to a grammar school or to a private secondary school, believe me, financial education is on the agenda. They have them looking at the Times, they have them looking at the stock market. But in many of the state schools, that isn't the case. And it is up to us, or if you homeschool your children, as mothers, as business entrepreneurs, educate your children. Don't leave it to the schools, because it may not happen. Sister Joyce, that's what I was thinking before I asked the other question. Those were my thoughts.
Yeah, and I think that leads very nicely into that question that you mentioned earlier about the wise parents. And yeah, go ahead with that question, and then we're going to summarize.
So the question that I wanted to pose to you all is that there is a scripture which we can quote, but I wanted to break it open a bit. There's a scripture that says, a wise parent stores up an inheritance for their children's children. What are your thoughts about what that really means and how you can bring that into being? And I'll start with Abigail, because you're the youngest.
I think in that respect, for me, for example, a lot of the mindset that I have around finances does come from my parents. And I was fortunate enough in that regard that I was taught that saving is important, investing is important, planning for your future. And I know that when I look, especially amongst my friends, I teach these things to them because they weren't privy to those conversations when they were growing up. And just seeing how that flows one to another, I think that it's really important, it's empowering to see how we can empower each other in terms of the information that we share. My mindset was definitely pressed into from a young age, and I was fortunate in that regard, and I know that it's definitely bearing its fruits now. And I think I'm passing on little seeds. I hope I'm passing little seeds. But no, yeah, it starts from the top and it works its way down. I definitely give a big thank you to my parents. I don't think they even realized the impact that they had on me growing up, being able to see how they deal with their finances and encourage me also. Obviously, back then, I didn't really understand the value of it. And it didn't particularly apply to me as a young child. But as I had more maturity, I definitely see how it's helped me. Even just shopping, my parents always taught me to check how much they're giving you for that price, and check the next product if it's better for what they're giving you, and just little things like that that just stick with me, and that I definitely can pass on to other people. It's important, and it's valuable.
Thank you so much. Over to you, Rachel, for that same understanding of what you mean by that scripture and how would it be applied.
Yeah, I think, like Abigail was saying, it is really important to educate children around financial matters, both using money wisely, and so as they grow up, starting to give them responsibility for their own money, or and a budget perhaps as they get to teenagers, so they have some responsibility for planning and managing their own money. I think within that, it's also really important to talk about giving and generosity. And it's not simply about acquiring or saving, but how they can be generous to others and live abundantly through giving and through loving others, as well as sort of storing up and saving. So in terms of inheritance, I can't pretend I've pondered hugely on this particular scripture. Yeah, I think it's good to help set up our families for the future. It's wise to equip people for the longer term future. But I think there's also ways you can think about using your money to benefit yourself in the longer term, but also perhaps help other people. So, for example, as a family, we, because my husband's a vicar and we live in church housing, we actually have invested in a couple of properties locally that we actually rent out to charities who can use for destitute asylum seekers. So we want to use money in a way that can be an investment for our future and for the children's future, but at the same time we rent them to people who can use them to help other people who are in quite a destitute situation. So I think there's a good balance between investing for the longer term future, for the inheritance of your kids, so to speak, but using your money wisely in the present to help and to benefit others perhaps who are not quite as fortunate.
Thank you so much. And Carol, over to you.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And I think sometimes we've shied away from talking about generational wealth or even money with our families and our children. I talk to my children regularly about money. We talk about how you can be financial stewards with the money, and then what they will do with their money in terms of, for example, will they buy their own property so they will have somewhere to live? And even the money that I'm giving to them, how do they use that money? So, for example, my daughter is at university. She still needs help. And I talk to her about how she uses her money. And then she will talk about what she's going to do with the money that she's got. Not just she's having to take a student loan, but she gets help with that as well. And we talk about that because I think going forwards in terms of their next generation, they will be the stewards of the money that we have generated as, the parents, myself and my husband. We will be passing on to them some generational wealth, and I would expect them to be good stewards of that money. And it's not just being stewards of the money or the wealth that we've passed on to them, but how do they help the community as well? So it's not just a case of how they look after themselves, but what do they do with the generational wealth that we are building, that we will pass on to them? Will they be good stewards of that wealth as well and help other people? And I've tried to teach them to do that as well. So yeah.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to ask Sister Joyce that same question in a moment, because what's interesting is that when we look at the word inheritance and passing it on to our children's children, most people have associated that inheritance with money or with finances, as opposed to with knowledge or even with the knowledge of God. And one of the most important things when I looked at that scripture after hearing it from another perspective is one thing, if I left all the money to my son, but didn't leave him as an inheritance knowledge, or didn't leave him as an inheritance the love of God, then I might have failed. And because if he doesn't have the love of God, number one, as an inheritance and to pass on to his children, then how can he then use money for God's purpose? And number two, if I left him with money, but no knowledge, then that in itself might be not very wise, because he wouldn't know what to do with the money, and it could be here today and gone tomorrow. So when I think of the scripture that a wise parent leaves an inheritance for their children and their children's children, I wanted to enlarge it more than just money, but more onto, number one, a heavenly relationship with God. That's the greatest thing as an inheritance I could give my son. The second is an education of learning to read for yourself and not depend on other people. As long as you're dependent on other people to tell you what's in the book, you're in trouble. You're in big trouble. And then number three is the knowledge and understanding of money. So even if somebody didn't have much money to leave to their next generation, once they left them with knowledge of how to make money, I think that's great. Sister Joyce, what's your thoughts on that?
I think for me the word is empowerment. I think our responsibility as parents, but also as leaders. I think leaders, because we're all leaders in some context, whether it's, it might not be in the context of a family, but it might be in the context of your workplace, or it might be in the context of church, is that we empower people around us. And empowerment means not always doing for someone. It's enabling and creating a culture and creating the environment where people can flourish. They can think for themselves. They can be guided. They can be supported. They can be mentored. In fact, someone online just asked this question. Someone named Minister All says, have you heard the phrase sitting with Nelly? And she says, it's all about learning from the experts that are local to you, who are willing to share their experiences and skills with others. Learning from Nelly. So actually, you might not learn from your parents because maybe they didn't have that upbringing, maybe they didn't have the skills, but if they've empowered you to and enabled you to learn from others, I think it's the environment and creating that environment where they can flourish. That's the important thing, and people feel empowered. That's my take on that question. Right, I can see. And thank you, and thank all of our panelists for tonight. And just very quickly, Rachel, I just wanted you to quickly the recap on CAP. Just the key messages for people who are listening who might want to get engaged with Christians Against Poverty, that telephone number again, and your website details, how people can get involved, just very quickly.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks. So I mentioned at the beginning that vision around transformed lives, thriving churches, and an end to UK poverty. So we can all play our part in that in different ways. Maybe you're a church leader out there and would like to know how your church could get involved. So you can go to capuk.org/get involved, and it will talk about church partnership and how you could partner with CAP to serve those locally who may need the kind of help that we can offer. Or you might want to donate. Again, capuk.org/donate, and you can have the opportunity to give an amount of money that will play a part in helping bring people out of debt and transforming their lives and giving them the hope of Jesus. I think the phone number can come up on the screen as well with my name.
Thank you so much, Rachel. And Thank you for agreeing to come and share. And, you know, we've heard about CAP before, but it might be new to some of you that are listening. And let's get involved at a local level, at a national level, within your local churches. If this is something that you feel passionate about and you want to run a group, an empowerment group with women, not just in your church, but in your community, the community that you serve, this would be something wonderful to actually be involved in, be supported by CAP, Christians Against Poverty, have that support for running those sessions within your local community and making an impact in and empowering others around you. So let's get involved. Let's get involved. I want to take the opportunity to thank Margaret for sharing with us tonight. Shares with your mom, you look absolutely amazing tonight. And thank you for sharing those pearls of wisdom. And Margaret, you represent an era of a generation of our elders that we really, we've stand on your shoulders, and we salute you and we thank you for your input, you know, your generation, for everything that you've done for our generation. You and your generation made those sacrifices that Abigail talked about. You put pride aside, you know, to grow your children, and not just your children, but others around you, because you were parents to other young people, and you know, you gave and you supported, and we just want to show our appreciation to you for everything that you've done. You are not forgotten, and your generation is not forgotten. And I just want to say that to all of our elders who are listening, our seniors that are online, we love you, and everything that you sacrifice, your giving into our churches, your giving into your families, your tithe paying, your tenth, you know, that inheritance that you have laid, I know that God sees and he knows, he understands, and he is. And I just want to, we just want to celebrate and thank you for everything that you've done. And I hope you sense that and feel that love and that compassion, and you know, thanks for all that you've done. And yeah, I just like all of our churches to, you know, just have an elders day, a seniors day, where we just love on our seniors and just love on, just appreciate them. You know, we don't want to be giving the flowers when it's too late. Let's give the flowers now and share our appreciation for our elders. I want to thank you, Carol, for making yourself available. Carol Money Tips. Have everybody heard of Martin Money Tips? Well, Carol is our church Martin Money Tips, Carol Money Tips. So thank you so much for what you shared tonight. And indeed, Abigail, wow, I think such an example, such an inspiration. I think I've learned so much from you tonight, just listening. And please continue to share, and maybe there's something more we could do to build on what we've done tonight, for some of this to be shared widely, and maybe through our youth department as well. And Rachel, thank you so much for making yourself available tonight. Don't go, please stay on set, because we're going to go over now to hear a piece of poetry that was written specially for tonight's program by Lauren, a young budding young person who has written this spoken poetry that we're going to listen to just now. Thank you.
greatest lie ever told is that our history was bought and sold, that we were meant to be spent, to stay stagnant and aspire for a freedom that was never a given but would always have tunnel vision. One view of the world shut inside, a narrow view of what opportunity looks like. Governed by names lost and replaced with the slave masters, influenced by insecurities of social constructs, and directed by governments and leaders who never loved us. But I refuse to believe that. To spend my life shackled to a history that I did not choose. My name was bestowed upon me by the hopes and dreams of my mother. My opportunities are only limited if I choose to believe what's forced in front of my eyes. And our story is one of unlimited success and royalty. The story of those that travelled from overseas to pave a new way for their families. Away from trees with fruits that could be described as colours, and towards shores with a melting pot of different colours. A land where the streets should have been paved with gold, but instead arrived to a new home greatly oversold. Still, they made fool's gold into a tangible goal, allowed God to lead them to a promised land where they claimed inheritance. But we all pay the price for inheriting hardships. But the generational curses, we are trading them for wealth, inherently multiplying our own self-worth, with hopes that we can afford to maintain this diaspora. But at what cost? When there are those who would use the young as an expendable resource. Yet, let no one despise your youth, but set the believers as an example in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, in purity. But the youth can't afford to pay any more attention. Too much time invested into maintaining a reflection. Keeping up with the world view was an expensive hobby. Now they are left begging for a slice of the future. Craving for that type of money that grows on trees so they can quantify if they are truly fruitful. Hoping that someone would pay them in kind. Show them how to pick the fruits that you did. The fruits of the Spirit. So that as it was written in Psalms 145 verse 4, just as one generation commends your works to another, they tell of your mighty acts. So let those who have gone on before and those who are next up recall how their inheritance is the strength of their grandmothers and grandfathers, who made deposits on their knees, cashed in blood, sweat and tears, and the countless abundant riches of prayers, so that in the years to come, with added interest, those tear-soaked prayers were all the more fragrant, because in the economy of prayers, we are all millionaires.
Wow! In the economy of prayers, we are all millionaires. That's absolutely fantastic, Lauren. If you're listening in tonight, oh, that was just absolutely amazing, and written specifically for tonight. Oh gosh, that was just, I feel like if we could listen to it again, but we've run out of time. Shares, any reflections from tonight and on that poem before we close?
I think you got the last two words which you captured, the economy of prayers. We are all millionaires. That's what stood out for me. And I would really like to thank everybody, all the panelists who have given up their time to share. And the reason they have shared is that the listeners may gain knowledge, do likewise and do better. That we won't suffer in silence. We won't bury our heads in the sand. And everybody who can hear our voice, who can watch this program, I think when Barack Obama won the elections, he says, yes, you can. And we're saying, yes, you can. You are not alone. Rachel has given her number. Sister Joyce has given her number. We're here to support you, and we ourselves are learning. So please, yes, you can. Thank you, Sister Joyce. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. We're about to close out now. Please get involved, get engaged in this whole area of finance, economic empowerment. Get involved with CAP. Minister Maxine Douglas, our National Social Action Director, is leading on this. Follow us on Twitter, Follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook to hear more information. We'll be posting further information. And we just want to thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate you. We can't do this without our women and you tuning in. Please share with others for us tonight. May God bless you as we close out with an amazing song that you're about to hear. Good night. God bless you. Good night.
Love you, Lord, for your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up till I lay my head, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. 'Cause all my life you have been faithful, and all my life you have been good, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire. In the darkest night, you are close like no other. I've known you as a father, I've known you as a friend, and I have lived in the goodness of God. 'Cause all my life you have been faithful, and all my life you have been good, so 'cause all my life you have been faithful, oh Lord. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. I will sing of the goodness of God. I will sing, of the goodness of God.